So last week I said we're going to study the heart. I was wrong. I do that a lot. We're going to study how our recovery from depression, our battle against depression, is spiritual. That is the topic. I've touched on that, the fact that it's a spiritual battle, a couple of times already. And today we'll kind of flesh out how it's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle when we fight depression. It's a spiritual battle when we have anxiety. It's a spiritual battle when we have doubts. It's a spiritual battle when we're angry. It's always spiritual. But we'll kind of focus in on depression. Sam, how are you? Grab a handout.
Okay. I forgot. You know what I forgot? I remember food, I remember diapers, but I don't remember what.
You don't have your hearing aids?
Right now, so since we don't have to wear these,
Okay.
I can see your lips.
You want to sit up here?
Oh, no. I'll get by.
Okay.
So turn your Bibles to Matthew 4, verse 1, and then someone go to Job chapter 1, verse 6. I want us to understand something that's very familiar to us all, that our adversary, Satan, our adversary, hold on to that word, exists. This is a spiritual battle, and our battle, first thing I want us to understand, is our battle is against Satan. Now, someone even dismissed the idea that Satan even exists. I know there are denominations, there are people, I know them, they've gone to church here. And they have said, Satan doesn't exist. He has no power, he's been expelled, he's gone, whatever, all words. But if we believe the truth of the Bible, we know he does exist. And he walks among us. Let's look at that. Matthew 4, verse 1. Someone, please.
And Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil.
The Lord was tempted by the devil. Shall we not be tempted by the devil? He suffered as we suffer. We suffer as he suffers. Shall we not be tempted by the devil? Does the devil not exist? Is the devil a figment of our imagination? No, it's not. Job 1, verse 6. Someone, please.
There was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them.
The sons of men.
Sons of God.
Okay, so, and Satan was among them. So he was in the crowd, coming there. And he's referred to as, let's see, there's somewhere he's referred to as an angel.
2 Corinthians.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. An angel of light. We're going to get to that. That's right. He disguises himself as an angel of light. So he's in heaven. He's where the Lord was at times. He exists. Satan goes around as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. You could go there and look at that. 2 Corinthians 11:14. I think there's a little bit we can learn right there about our adversary. 2 Corinthians. You can drill that word in. 11:14. And I really...
and no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light.
Exactly. Thank you, Sam.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, don't be. That was perfect. And I ask us, let's go back just a couple of verses to 12 and work through 14. And beginning in 12, and what I do, I will continue to do in order to undermine the claim of those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission they work on the same terms as we do. They purport to be ministers and missionaries and be ethical and so on and so forth. They make themselves to be out as Christians, but they know they're not. They are there to deceive you and to tear down the church. They are there for one reason only, to make you believe they're one way, but they're actually another way. And they are amongst us. That Satan can disguise himself as someone who is there to help you. Those handouts went where? Oh, there's someone here. Hello.
Hello, sorry for late.
Oh, it's all right. Satan goes around as an angel of light. He can disguise himself as someone who is there to help you, or disguise the message so that the advice makes sense to your ears. Oh yes, friend, thank you for that. So not only do they mean you well, but the advice they're giving you makes perfect sense. Satan will use others, his servants. Such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So he will use others, disguise them as, even though they are still his servants, all for the purpose of deceiving us. And we learned some things about depression the last couple of weeks, and we'll talk more about it today. One of the basic characteristics of depression is the dialogue in our mind that we're not worthy, we're not good, there's something wrong with us, and those are all lies. Flip around to 1 Peter 5, a familiar passage, 5 through 8. 1 Peter 5, verses 5 through 8. Let's see what more about our adversary. 1 Peter 5, 5 through 8. Who would read that for me while I take a break?
Likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Be sober-minded and be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour.
Thank you. Satan is constantly prowling about. Satan is constantly prowling about. It's right here in the Bible. It must be true. We must be warned. Our adversary is lurking. It's as if you're a soldier somewhere on patrol fighting an enemy, and he is out there on a rooftop looking to snipe you. He is ready to pounce on you. You need to be warned and be ready to fight your adversary. Is he not? He's an adversary. It's interesting that this passage links two character traits that are especially that can cause us to become depressed. That can lead to depressive thoughts. That, or at least, quite often, Satan will use them to poison your mind. The first is anxiety. The second is pride. And they're both linked right in there as to what we need to be aware of and watch for in our own lives. To look for pride. To be proudful is to be in opposition to God. I'm good. I got this. I can do whatever I want to do. It might be a problem in your life. It might be some kind of trial and tribulation. But I got this. I will do exactly what I want to do. I won't pray about it. If I get godly advice, I'm not going to listen to it because I got it. I am my own God. I live in opposition to God. Anxiety, an irrational fear of the future. Anxiety, by its very nature, is to doubt that God can help, that God has a way, that God is in control, that God knows you're suffering. Anxiety, by its very nature, causes us to close in and look only at ourselves. And Satan, the adversary, knowing who we are and what we are, will use those two traits that we tend to do just because we're fallen creatures, being redeemed, being sanctified. but the element still exists there. Satan will go, aha, you're weak right now. There's been a death in your family. You're sick. Somebody's sick in your family. Whatever. I'll use that. Prideful, anxious. He is your adversary. He is out to get you. We then, him being an adversary, seeking to hurt us, we need to be active in opposing him. More about Satan. John 8:44. If he doesn't find a way to get you to be prideful and to be anxious, horrible little things to endure, he will resort to this. John 8:44, someone read it.
You love your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies.
Satan will lie. And I talked a moment ago about the dialogue, which is natural for us to have a dialogue in our mind. For a depressed person, the dialogue is negative, and it turns against you. And Satan is right there with lots of good ideas, lies, about what's wrong with you. You're a burden to your family. You're a burden to your spouse. Your children don't like you. Or, that guy got the promotion because he's better than you. You're not good at your job. You stink. Lies. But we think that way. We buy it. We walk around with it like it's a boulder on our shoulder. Because after a while, when those negative thoughts, that dialogue goes on and on and on, after a while we buy it and we close up and we get shrunk. It hurts. You're not good enough. You cannot do that because you don't know how to do it. You'll never learn how to do it. But by being spiritual, we can outwit Satan and be wise to his schemes. 2 Corinthians 2, verse 11. I got that one. I'm there. So that we would not be outwitted by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his designs. We have been warned. God, in his wonderful, loving providence, has given us his word. He has sent true, godly people to be in our life. We know that Satan is out to get us, and we have right here what we need to know to outwit him. We can be smarter than Satan. We can fight him. We have the tools to fight Satan, who is looking to tear us down. So, why is it that Satan's able to destroy us? Why is he so able to lie to us and we'll believe it? Why is he able to exploit our tendency to become prideful or anxious? And it's because we are spiritually vulnerable. We are spiritually vulnerable. Our emotions, we would think there's just so many emotions, and there are. They're just thinking about sad, glad, happy, disgusted, exuberant. There's just so many different ways to describe emotions, but there's, you could think in terms of there's just 6 basic ones. And some of them are very negative and powerful. Being angered, being sad, being disgusted. Those are real powerful emotions. And when we feel them, to be frightened or surprised, it's very powerful. And if being frightened and surprised, saddened in some cases, is real sudden or awful, or both, this part of our mind, this kind of existential, but part of this is biology. As our senses pick up a threat, or we hear something, look out. or we see something that disgusts us or surprises us, or if our mind thinks it sees something, that's a snake. It sets off a whole cascade of things in our mind. Our emotions are powerful. This part of our nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, our senses pick something up. This little region in the brain says, "Whoa, that could be a threat. Be careful." And then that causes neurotransmitters, hormones, all these other things to flow. Adrenaline, cortisol being two big ones, because we have to get ready to fight. Or to deal with the memory of a fight, or to deal with the memory of some sort of pain, or some kind of sadness. And so we kick in and we get ready, and our heart might beat faster, or we'll start to perspire, or our muscles will get tight, all manner of things. This could be a response to anxiety because we're scared of some unknown thing around us, and we actually physically respond to it. And that's my point. We're vulnerable just by the way we're made, and we're fallen creatures. We're vulnerable. And our emotions interpret the world around us, and our emotions can be skewed. Our emotions can lie to us. What we think we see or understand isn't true. Usually, there's a whole other part, the parasympathetic nervous system, once it realizes and checks in with the front part of the brain, says, "Whoa, that's not a snake, that's a stick. Settle down." And different hormones and neurotransmitters and all that other stuff that wasn't on my test, they start to flow. And they slow your heart down. You don't perspire anymore. Everything slows down. Some people will even swoon. It's because the parasympathetic nervous system kicked in real hard and turned off that adrenaline, and the heart slowed down real fast. And they, woo! You ever feel that? Like almost got hit by a car or something like that? And you kind of swoon a little bit. It's parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. It's natural. God made it that way to settle you down, just like the autonomic nervous system to get excited and get ready to fight that tiger. God made you that way. It's a survival thing. Okay? But imagine if all that stays on all the time, and you're never able to calm down, like the anxious person or the fearful person, and it never turns off. You're going to probably become depressed, because the world is just, you're constantly on guard. You'll get wore out. You'll get tired. There'll be some real physical problems occur, and you can very likely become depressed, panicky. And that's when Satan is going to go, "Gotcha. Let me tell you this story. You're weak. Or you're never going to get better. Or you deserve that." Or any number of lies. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it seems to me that he tries to exploit the flaws in our faith.
Yes. I think you're right.
Because we are weak. We are fallen.
Wasn't that what Satan was kind of probing with the Lord in the desert? Let's see if you're really up to this, and tempted Jesus with those temptations, looking to see if there was a weakness. Of course, with the Lord, there's not going to be, but that was his angle of attack. Let's see if there's weakness right here.
Well, Rick, some of those lies are not. Well, it's true we're weak.
We are weak.
It's true you are weak, but where do you go with that? Where is your focus? If your focus is just, introspection is not necessarily a bad thing if you're looking at yourself, but what you do with it, you're going to trust in yourself, you're going to trust in the motivational speaker that you hear, or are you going to turn to the Lord? And to a very great degree, it's where your focus is after you get that.
I think I agree with you. We have a choice. We could turn to here, or we could turn to ourselves and our own interpretation of what's going around with us. I think it's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But let's not look at that necessarily as a flaw in the person who initially looks in at their heart or believes the lie or can't see how God remembers them. I don't just want us, at least where I'm standing right now, I don't want us to see that as a flaw, but as their trial and tribulation and a place to grow.
And the lie is not so much that you're weak, but there's nothing can be done about it.
Right.
You're hopeless.
You are hopeless. Yes, that's a big message. You're right. Thank you. Let's see if I got that. So I mentioned we're emotionally vulnerable. We tend to believe the lies. I'm going to advance this just a little bit. The lies that he will tell us that we are a burden, we're not valuable, we don't measure up. And as our mind continually bombards us with those depressive thoughts, we end up hopeless. We buy into the lies. Even a faithful Christian will just start buying in to those lies that Satan's laying out there. And it's the lies that can go for the jugular of our heart. If we buy into that lying dialogue Satan wants us to believe, we can get ourselves to, what have I done? Have I done something that can't be forgiven? Never mind searching in here and seeing, looking, but we'll just grab that. Have I done something that can't be forgiven? Given. And we know that's not true intellectually. But then we'll go like Genesis 3. Did God really say that? Is that what he really meant? Am I the exception? What I've done can't be forgiven. God has forgotten me. God is going to ignore me until I get to heaven. He's just going to ignore me. And this is going to be it for the rest of my time on earth is this misery. I'm going to suffer the rest of my life right here. And I'll get to heaven and it'll be great. But in the meantime, this is horrible. I have no reason to live. Job 3:1. Somebody? Here's a depressive statement. Job chapter 3, verse 1.
After this opened Job his mouth and cursed his name.
Cursed his day. I should have never been born. This is all there is. That's a depressive thought. Now, he had reason. All those sores, he lost his family, and that's where he ended up. I should have never been born. So, the next thing is Satan, if he can't make us believe lies about our situation and what our emotions are telling us, he will tell us lies about God. Genesis 3:1, real quick. Did God really say? Did God really say? That's a lie about God. We know what God said. That was a lie about God. And Eve? Well, I don't know. Luke 18:19, and then there's somebody to go to Psalm 55:22. Luke 18:19. What is the lie about God here? This is going to take some backwards thinking, but I think we get it. Luke 18:19, somebody?
Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone."
We're taught that God is good. He's the ultimate good. But how often have you heard lies about God? I can't believe God would allow that to happen. God must not be God if he allows people to suffer in Afghanistan or whatever. A lot. And their misery and sadness because they're kind of buying into it. That God must not be a God that can rescue and save us and comfort us because he'd allow these children to die. Or be in an earthquake or whatever. So, does God even care? Psalm 55:22.
Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved.
God cares about me. But how often have any of us here, or how often have we known someone that believes, it's a little different. God's too busy. He doesn't care. This is too small for God. This is not a problem he concerns himself with. God doesn't care. Satan would like us to believe that. And if we don't turn, If we don't turn to the Word, we don't read those promises. I think, Blair, that's where you were at a minute ago. We could turn to the Word and read these promises. But I'm telling you, quite often the depressed mind, as it reads that, this doesn't apply to me. Yeah, but. Or I'm different. If you only knew my circumstances. He goes on with it. Satan would like us to believe, to buy into lies that focus on the temporal stuff here and not on spiritual realities. He would rather we believe our felt experiences are real and overrule spiritual realities. In other words, what I can see and feel and touch here on earth must be true. It is what I feel and touch and perceive it to be, totally ignoring whatever the spiritual realities might be. For instance, fear, Job 9:28, somewhat. Then the next one's Matthew 8:26.
I am afraid of all my sufferings. I know that you will not hold me innocent.
Okay, Matthew 8:26, thanks, Simeon. Matthew 8:26. Going once, going twice.
And he said to them, "Why are you afraid, O you little faith?" Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm.
Fear, I get scared. I know all of you at one time or another in your life have feared for your life, feared of your circumstances, or feared what the outcome of a situation you're in could turn into. You are scared of it.
Was it just before that statement that they said, "Don't you care that we're perishing"?
Yeah, God knows you care. Yeah, very good. So fear. Satan would have us believe that the fear we have is valid. Now, if a car's bearing down on you, and you should be scared and get out of the way. But quite often, what we fear is not the truth. There's a spiritual reality. God cares. God knows what's going on in our life. Particularly with anxious folks, the fear is irrational and focused on something in the future. And oh my gosh, this will turn true. I'm going to get fired tomorrow, blah, 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 and become all anxious. How do you know the future? You might believe you know what the future is, but you do not know the future. That belongs to God. And a lot of times with anxiety, the circumstances that are believed are in no way really grounded in reality. But the fear is palpable. It is real. Hunger, Psalm 107:9. Then anger. Somebody could go to Ephesians 4:26. We're going to roll here.
I have the anger.
Go ahead, read the anger one.
The anger, yeah. Be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And the next verse, do not give up. Do not give the devil an opportunity.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to read that.
Yeah.
Do not give the devil the opportunity to use your anger.
That's right.
I'm going to get even, vindictive. Or I'm going to hate my anger. I'm going to feel shame and guilt over my anger. I mean, it can go a lot of places. Anybody got that hunger one, 107:9?
He satisfies the longing soul, the hungry soul he fills with good things.
God meets our material needs. God with His providential love, meets every one of our needs, particularly hunger. If you think about that verse, you can stretch that to many things, to all material things that we need. God provides. But how often have we or someone we know desired or even thought they needed immediately material things, and were overwhelmed with this need, overwhelmed with this fear of not getting their need met. I need a raise, or I need a loan, or I got to have a new car, I can't get to work, or whatever. We're overwhelmed, and we believe the lies that we'll never get what we need. But is that true? Does God leave us without what we need? We might be hungry. We might not have a car that runs. We might not have money in the bank. But for us here, we have resources. We have people to turn to. We've got God who is not going to leave us like that. Even if you could follow that through. Even if you were to starve to death, did he forget about you? No, not for us. He will meet our needs. I don't know. I got stuck in that one for a while. Quite often with these temporal experiences, felt needs, we gauge our goodness and wellness upon our good fortune. Then when hardship comes, we interpret it as God is against us, or we'll never be well again. 1 Timothy 6:17. So, 1 Timothy 6:17.
As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy.
I think this is one, particularly in our culture, in our country, for a Christian to gauge their financial wellness and where they live and how well things are going for them and their health. I'm okay. Things are going well for me. I'm hitting on all cylinders. I'm good. I'm going to ride this out to a great sunny retirement. 401 bursteth over. You know? And then when the sun turns dark, illness, particularly at my age, we get sick, or a loved one gets sick, or children get sick, or disappointments come, whatever can happen to somebody who's much younger. Disappointments come, jobs fall through, savings disappear, cars break down. Well, this means God doesn't love me. Or I'll never get better again. It just turns into this whole woe is me sadness that if believed, because Satan will take that and run with it against you because he's your adversary. He will lie to you. There's no way out. You missed the boat. You're not good enough. See, you're a dummy. You shouldn't have invested in that. Well, just all this lies. Material stuff. I hope that's the point that's coming through. I'm not trying to make a financial statement so much as we put more stock in what we feel and perceive than what the spiritual realities really are. So what do? What's the counterattack? I'm going to begin with Ephesians 6, verses 11 through 12. Make this. And then someone would get Job 1:7.
And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and from on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it.
And would you go ahead and read all the way through 9 for me? That'll save us a little time. All the way, 8 and 9.
So, then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is more than like him on the earth, blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? So Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely cause you to your face.
It's interesting. Satan would even argue with God and cast aspersions, debating. No. Okay, hold that thought. Thank you, Simeon. In Ephesians 6, 11 and 12.
Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places.
Thank you. So this Ephesians passage reminds us that we must struggle. We cannot not fight. We must be wise. We must pay attention so that we can struggle. I like the word battle. Battle Satan. He is our adversary. He is an enemy, and his whole goal is set to make us miserable, particularly the Christian. You know, he probably thinks that's a great coup to make a Christian miserable. You know, a person who's not a believer, they're deceived, and he can convince them of anything. But a Christian, we have a hope that is sure, and if he can find a way to make us miserable, he's probably like, yeah, this guy's saved, this guy's going to make it to heaven, but his whole time on earth is going to be horrible. It's going to be hell on earth, because I got this guy now. And Satan is prepared. We think about that whole passage from Job. He walks the earth. His whole mind is to wage a war against us. That's what he wants to do. He is set to wage a war against us. He is our adversary. He will use our emotions and our weaknesses against us. So knowing that, since we are armed with spiritual battle gear, we need to use it, for it will work. 1 Corinthians 10:13. Boy, this has been a sword drill today, hasn't it?
Okay, I started.
Go ahead.
You started 12, Sam? You got it? Okay. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as common to man. And God is faithful, will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, that you may be able to endure.
Thank you.
There's always a way out.
There's always a way out. Do not believe you are unique in your particular battle, in your particular temptation, in your whatever is going on. Do not believe that you are unique and no other Christian has experienced the temptation that you have experienced. The Lord experienced everything just like a man. Okay? And you know what? I always learn I'm not an island. There's somebody who's been through what I've been through, some fashion or another. But as soon as we believe we are unique, and I'm a one-off, that no one else has been through what I've been through, then we start to close up. Then we start to shrink down and start believing things. Instead, let's believe that God has armed us and we can resist Satan and that we can resist temptation to sin. Another element of our counterattack is to know Christ. 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4.
Moreover, brethren, I declare to you the gospel which I preach to you, which also you received, and in which you stand, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast that word which I preach to you, unless you believe in vain. For I delivered to you first of all that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12, and after that he was seen by over 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain to the present, but some have fallen asleep.
Okay, thank you. The gospel. It's when as we close in, as situations deceive us, circumstances, our thoughts, and we start to close in, we tend to forget where the real balm, the salve for our hurt, is the gospel. To know Christ changes everything. And even the Christian can know more about Christ. It's a well that has no bottom there. Turning to Christ, knowing Him better, it overcomes depression. That John 1 verse 4, light overcomes darkness, depression's darkness. Drawing closer to Christ, who overcame Satan and death, is the first and necessary step for overcoming depression. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I think this is an important part, that we need to remember a couple of things in our battle against our adversary. That depression is not meaningless, but instead is filled with purpose and meaning. Satan wants us to believe that we are meaningless, nothing matters, all this is tasteless, it's all a big lie, nobody cares. But it's God who says, 1 Peter 1, it's God who says, rejoice in your trials and tribulations, because they are going to result in praise and glory and your transformation into the image of Christ. There's a goal here with our suffering with depression. It's going somewhere. There's something coming out the other side. It's not just, oh, no. And if we can somehow grasp that in our depression, that this goes somewhere. Ecclesiastes, let's remember, Ecclesiastes 12:13. Someone would read that. We got to keep the main thing, the main thing. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Then Matthew 22:39.
The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
Matthew 22:39. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the passage about love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind, love your neighbor as yourself, right? We all know what I'm referring to. With any of our sadness, our anxiety in particular, and our disgust, we need to focus on what our mission is here on earth. First question in the Westminster Confession of Faith, Shorter Catechism, what is the chief end of man?
Glorify God and rejoice forever.
That is what we're here for. And if we can make the main thing, to fear God and do His commandments, to love our neighbor, to love the Lord and love our neighbor, and get out of our head a little bit and make the main thing, even though it is so difficult to do, particularly in the midst of depression. When it's so hard to even move out of the house, if we can somehow make the main thing, we will feel better. We need to remember to persevere. Because Satan says, give up. What does God do? Psalm 78, 38 through 39. We're there. Psalm 78, 38 through 39.
Yet he, being compassionate, atoned for their iniquity and did not destroy them. He restrained his anger often and did not stir up all his wrath. He remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes and comes not again.
God remembers. Thank you. God remembers us. He knows how we are made. He knows we're vulnerable. He knows there's a strong adversary against us, and He doesn't give up caring for us. So we may persevere in the knowledge and the hope that God will deliver us. God will meet our every need. Psalm 81 gets to that. God will meet our needs if we but remember to persevere, to focus on Him. Remember who our adversary is. That depression has purpose and meaning, so it's not meaningless. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our lesson for today. I hope it was a blessing to you as it was to me in preparing.